all cherries were cheaper. Do you remember that? For your neighbor. So your neighbor is going to produce 60 and 0, and then you're going to produce the others. So you're going to produce apples 20 and 0. Making sense? Then what we're going to look at is how much more is produced and consumed. So if we did this production in the world, we would have to add up the total amount of apples produced before and the total amount of cherries produced before and see what the extra is. And I would never just worry about the consumption line. I would just look at the difference. I think let's do it that way, because I always teach it this way and this works better. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at total apples without, trade, without trade. Total cherries without trade. And then let's look at total apples and cherries with trade, basically. Okay? So that's what we're going to do on these two lines. So this is without, W-O, and this is with. And that'll tell you that there's extra to eat. I've given up on trying to do it the way the book's doing it. This works. Total apples without trade. Well, without trade it was 8 and 9, 17, right? And cherries, it would be 12 and 42, which is 54, right? Okay, so with trade, we're going to have 60 cherries produced, and we're going to have 20 apples produced. So 3 more apples and 6 more cherries are available for the consumers to eat because of trade and because of comparative advantage. Do you get it? Let me go through and check. Sometimes talking and thinking at the same time don't work well. So let me see. Apples 8 and 9, 17. Cherries 12 and 42 is 54. Okay. And then if the neighbor produces what's cheapest for the neighbor, that's 60. We produce the other thing, we trade, and the total difference is there's 3 more apples and there's 6 more cherries. I assume these are bushels of cherries. So basically, if we had said, okay, we're going to consume somewhere here and they're going to consume somewhere here without trade, we can trade, and then there'll be some point outside of our PPF, which is, remember, I should have made this point. Your normal PPF looks like that from the last set of videos, right, or the last lectures. But if we're going to do the math, it's a lot easier to pretend it's straight so that it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. It's a straight relationship, because this one's going to imply some declining returns to scale. Increasing costs or decreasing returns as we trade off. And so that makes the math harder, and we don't want to do that. We just want to understand it. Okay? So we make this straighter, and that's pretty much the way we do it in all the textbooks too. We just make this straight for when we do math. Cheating! So, here we go. The main thing you got to get out of that is what? 3 extra and 6 extra that could be traded, and I have this chart here in the book where they've gone through and they figured out how much each would trade for. You don't need to know that. You don't need to worry about that. The main thing is when we produce what we have a comparative advantage in producing and trade for something that we don't have a comparative advantage, there will be more stuff available for the consumers either in our household or in our country to consume. And this works unless we have unfair trade. And that does exist. And so at this point in time, China practices unfair trade with us. And some countries practice unfair trade. And when that happens, it's not necessarily beneficial. But if it's fair trade, if it's like us in Canada, us trading chemicals and them trading wheat or something, and it's just fair, we're just trading and nobody's playing games, that sort of thing. Well, in that case, we end up with more stuff to consume than we could produce inside our PPF. So if that's our PPF, that's all we could consume, we can actually consume outside of it when we trade and we specialize. All right, I hope you got it.